Hello everybody, I'm Allie Weary, and this is Working Title, a COMM 348 production. 3 groups of students sought out interesting stories and put together documentaries. Join us as we sit down with the creators and discuss the filmmaking process and watch their final products. Joining me first is Shane White, Ryan Borstelman, and Jordan Willey. They put together a documentary titled The Stand. Now Shane, can you tell me, what is your film specifically about?
Our film is about the Dive 95.9, a radio station, and Ben Larson, the guy who created the radio station.
Okay, and what gave you the idea to cover this radio station in the documentary?
First, when we decided to start a documentary, we kind of all pulled together and thought about the interesting things going on around the Fargo-Moorhead area and what's helping out the community. And this radio station really stuck out to us because it was quite the organization they have going on over there.
Well, it sounds really interesting. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at what they came up with?
Sometimes the crowd you follow has no idea where they're going. You only get one life to live, so live it well. Dive 95.9, your rock radio. I am Ben Larson, and this is the story of a dream. You are listening to another edition of The Stand on Dive 95.9. My name is Ben, and I will be your host for the next while. It is a beautiful day outside. If you haven't had a chance to get outside and enjoy the weather, I feel sorry for you. It's 63 degrees outside with a variable 4-mile-an-hour wind, which means they have no idea where it's coming from. It's just kind of whatever. Dive 95 is an experiment. It really, honestly, is something that is different. I had an idea for Dive 95 to be an honest, true community radio station. And what I mean, I guess my definition of community radio station would be that we talk about community issues. We address issues that our listeners are actually involved with. And on top of that, provide great music and be able to understand the culture and really, I guess, embrace the culture. There's a lot of other radio stations, around the United States that do a great job of playing the music, but they don't really do anything to bring in the community. They might, announce a show or whatever, like a concert or a local event once in a while. I've thought for a long time, even as a kid growing up, why is it that there are stations that just play the same 40 songs and that's all they play? Why is it that when I request a song that I want to hear on the radio, that the DJ makes fun of me and says, that band is ridiculous, I'll play this instead? Dive 95 actually started out as a coffee shop idea a long time ago. I've been in and out of bands since high school, and I've done everything from bluegrass to metal and everything in between. I played in the orchestra. I was the last project I was in, we toured around the U.S. and had a small record deal and did some cool stuff. I wouldn't even say a blip on the music history scale of things, but I always knew that I wanted to be involved in music somehow, and I have a passion for young people. Radio has become such a suit and tie corporate affair that it's lost touch. And I had this idea when I was in the band to bring it back to the people. So I had this idea for the station. I went after it, tried a few things down in the cities. Nothing ever came. The suits that owned the radio stations just kind of said, you don't know what you're talking about, you have no idea, you don't have any experience. And I'm just like, okay, here's my plan. And I took 2 weeks, wrote out my plan, sent it to them. And then they shot it down. 2 months later, they couldn't find somebody else to run this weird eclectic station that was before Dive 95. So they came back and said, fine, we don't want to pay the bills anymore. Here, You can just have it. Just do whatever you want. Will I put anything on? No, I won't put anything on. You will probably never ever hear Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Aerosmith, stuff like that. But for the most part, we're open. I'll play old country. We'll play Johnny Cash to As I Lay Dying.
I've been a listener since I came to Fargo. I really enjoyed actually having music that was worth listening to the point where I've never ever had to change my radio station since coming here.
I would rather have a song that is encouraging to somebody, and I don't care if it comes from Matisyahu, who's Jewish, Beastie Boys, who are Kabbalah, or Skillet, who is a Christian group. I don't care where it comes from because I think encouragement is all about what you take away from it.
I totally gave up on radio in Fargo. I was at my limit. My iPod was my best friend, but it's had some competition.
Also, I do a lot of top 10 searches of really good music blogs. People, usually quarterly, they'll put out a top 10 for the year or last year or whatever. And so I'll go get those. And it's funny because if you compare it to Rolling Stone or some of the bigger places, that's why Foster the People was there, That's why last year it was Mumford & Son and, Black Keys and all these bands that are just flying right underneath the radar. So I try to find the stuff that kids are listening to, that people are interested in, and that is quality music. One constant that you'll see across the boards and all the music that we play is that we do not, under any circumstance, want to promote violence. We don't want to promote like sexual innuendos. We don't want to promote the drug culture. We don't want to promote just basically the things that are on the fringe. That's probably been the hardest to overcome is that music can be good, and you can write a good song. You can have a good radio program, show, whatever, and there doesn't have to be cursing, and there doesn't have to be all these negative things. But it seems that the art culture holds dear the extremes, the Marilyn Mansons or the cross with the urine in a jar. And we just try to have something that's a quality song, unless it's just a feel-good song like Beat on the Brat with a Baseball Bat, which is the Ramones, this is Ramones, you know what I mean? I just feel that there's enough negative in the world that we can have a bit of positive. What Fargo, I guess the community has meant to me is I feel like we're great, but you can always improve. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't stop practicing just because he got to the top of his game, He still went to practice, he mentored, and he worked. And so for me, I love Fargo. I, like a lot of people, got frustrated and wanted to get out of here as soon as I could after I graduated high school because I thought it was so boring, I thought it was so lame. But then I realized, hey, Lynchburg, Virginia is boring and lame. LA can be lame, Minneapolis can be lame. So it's all about what you make it, There's something about the word community. We live in a city that has super low unemployment. We live in a city where we have so many activities. It's safe. Your kids can go out and play kick the can at night. You know what I mean? And you're not worried about them getting kidnapped. On a rare occasion, there's some bad thing that happens, but for the most part, we're pretty safe. The other thing too that I think is super important for me about the Stand and Dive 95 is that so many times in the last probably 30 years, it seems like the division between conservative and liberal has become further and further apart, and that friends who once, 30, 40 years ago could be friends have a difference of opinion and could go on living life. That today, you don't see that happening often. Like circles of friends usually believe similar. They might be one's a little bit further left or further right or whatever. But for the most part, to have that conversation, people get frustrated, people get angry, and then they walk away and don't deal with the problem. So I want to be able to come from a semi-neutral standpoint, put out the question, which I try to stay as neutral on the questions to let people really answer from the heart, I guess. We get some trolls, but for the most part, it's pretty good. We've even had high school students that are going away from college. We had this one girl, she wrote us and she said, because of your encouragement and your great choice of music, I am now winning my battle with anorexia. And I realized that the first thing that I was really going to miss in the Fargo-Moorhead area was Dive 95. And to me, that is exactly where I want to be. I want to be able to be an encourager and a person that pushes people out of their comfort zone and get us back to a conversation and be able to talk about the tough issues and have a great time doing it, playing good music, and it's our life.
I'm trying my best not to be too comparing.
Yeah.
I want to compare them.
You guys have yourself a great evening. Get out, do some bike riding, go play with your dog, dig a hole, I don't know, whatever. Join us tomorrow. We'll be here and chit-chatting your ear off. This is Soul Coughing with Fully Retractable. Enjoy. You're listening to Dive 95.
And so, Jordan, can you tell me what was your favorite part about the documentary?
Well, it was really fun to go out there and see the studio. It's kind of a low-powered, small little studio, which was kind of a nice little change from like a bigger studio that you'd see in a high-powered station. So, I mean, it was really fun to go out there and meet him and meet his people that volunteer for him. And they're all kind of a really cool group of people that are just really interesting, and they all have their own story for how they got involved and how the whole station just kind of has changed their life as a whole. So that was really, really interesting.
And Ryan, is there something specific about Ben's story that inspired you at all?
I would say just being able to take a radio station from nothing, like this failing radio station that he picked up, and turn it into something that I know personally people who listen to the station on a daily basis, and to do it without any sort of funding or advertising or anything like that normal radio stations rely on, and they use all the time. Well, he doesn't use any of those things, yet he still has a successful, or what I would view as a successful radio station. That's pretty impressive that he was able to do that.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. And up next, we have Jake Cheetah and Nate Anderson just after this break.
With MapBus being the easiest, greenest, and most efficient way to get around North Dakota State University, there are tons of reasons to MapBus.
I'm at bus to get to class on time. I don't have to use my car, waste gas, or waste time finding a parking spot.
I'm at bus because their hybrid buses not only help our community and our state, but they're also helping our world.
I'm at bus not only to get around campus, but to get around the Fargo community. The 25 different routes get me anywhere I need to be.
There are many reasons to MapBus. Come find yours.
Join the herd. Be MapBus strong.
Jimmy John's, America's favorite sandwich. Delivery guys.
Steps up, throws deep. Holloway is there at the 5. Caught at the 2. Touchdown, Pfizer.
is Jake Cheetah and Nate Anderson. They put together a documentary titled A State Divided. Now, Jake, what is your documentary about?
Our documentary is centered around the NDSU and UND rivalry and what it used to be and how it is now and what we hope that it will become in the future.
Okay, and Nate, what gave you guys the idea?
I think the idea came from the fact that we've actually started playing UND again, back in some certain sports such as basketball, and people just remember what it used to be, but current students don't. We want to give them that feel, and we just want to encourage the rivalry to turn back into that healthy, passionate thing that it used to be.
Well, let's see what you guys came up with when you went to UND.
You know, it's as intense a rivalry as any in-state rivalry is.
Nothing surpassed the Bison and the Sioux when they played.
If they're from around here, yes. If they're related to someone who went to school here, yes. But if you're from San Diego or someplace like that and you have no history, you probably have no idea. And a lot of these athletes, I'm sure on both schools, who come in from all parts of the country, they don't know about it until they get to campus.
Because anytime any team could beat the Bison, you know, that was a feather in our hat, you know, for the Sioux. We wanted to win, whether it was tiddlywinks or whatever, you know, you wanted to win the game.
And it wasn't just football and basketball, you know, it was whether they were playing volleyball or baseball or track or whatever. It meant a lot to the athletes.
With just 79 miles separating them and more than 20 national championships between them, two colleges from North Dakota have always been set to butt heads. Homegrown student athletes and a state split in two led to a rivalry heard from miles around.
Back to the farm! Back to the farm!
When the Bison and the Fighting Sioux met, every game was a hit. Over 7,000 fans were at every home game as the women of the 90s faced off. With 8 national championships won by women's basketball, every game meant something.
Back in the 90s, the women's basketball rivalry was as good as it got. Both teams were winning national championships. Both teams were national powers.
You know, it took an interesting twist because both programs did recruit so locally. And I know even in our case, we had players from the same high school team competing against each other, one at the University of North Dakota and then the other at NDSU. So by the time we hit the 90s and we won that first national championship in 91 and finished second in 92 and went on to win in 93, 4, 5, 6 national championship, you know, we kind of raised the bar for women's basketball, and it did set an undertone that, hey, whoever wins the North Central Conference has a very good chance of winning a national championship. And then the University of North Dakota went on and upset us in 97, 98, 99. They won the championships.
And it was just a great era. I don't think we'll ever see that kind of a decade again for women's basketball. Both teams, and mostly with homegrown kids. National Division II championships. You know, you just hope that you can return to something like that.
I think it was a fun time when it was there, and it really created for us in a Division II world a big game atmosphere that otherwise wouldn't have been there. But to have that experience for our student athletes to be in a big game, which, like I say, our athletes do now on a much bigger occasion, was really fun at that point in time. I think for the athletes, it was a great competition and a great rivalry. I think for the fans, it got to be, you know, the Hatfields and the McCoys. It got to be something just extreme.
The rivalry had many different looks. Some thought it was a sibling rivalry. Others thought it was something much more.
Sometimes I think the fans were more into it even than the players.
I think from the coaches and the players, certainly they are competitive. But at the end of the game, and I've seen this happen several times, you know, early in my career here, that they're the ones that are hugging and high-fiving.
You really wanted to win the game because of the importance of it, but it wasn't a hatred type of thing.
And the fans are really getting after each other, so it's the fans that really just build that thing into something that's probably bigger than it is on the field.
I remember going home after we got beat down at their place on a Saturday afternoon, and we walked into the first door to get in and unlocked the door to get into Hislop, and here's a big letter sitting on the door just blasting us, and we went through another door, it was the same letter again, and then when we went into our locker room there was another letter there blasting us. So some fan wasn't very happy with us, and they were going to let us know when we got off the bus to Winter.
In 2004, NDSU athletics decided to move up to Division I. With UND staying at Division II, the rivalry came to a screeching halt.
It was disappointing.
The fans were so unfriendly to each other, but on the court, the players were hugging. Some of the players were crying because they knew that the last time they were going to play them.
It was just, it was a sad, kind of a sad moment that we were breaking up, you know.
Logistically, it did not make sense for the teams to play anymore. The big question was, would the fans understand the split?
I think some fans understood. Some fans who have probably had to make a payroll or meet a budget. The rabid fans who don't look at those factors will probably just not understand the reasons.
I don't think they really did. I think they took it as, you know, personality conflicts and that type of thing, and it's not that, and as much as some people want to believe that is, you know, they can believe that, but it was more of a business matter.
Really continuing to play them, I think a lot of people thought that we were just mad at them for doing so, we were going to isolate them. That really wasn't the case at all. It was a matter of what were our best interests in playing them as opposed to playing other Division II teams that count towards getting into the playoffs. And it was a tough to give up the games, but for the good of having our guys and gals get in NCAA playoffs and fight for national titles, that was more important to us than continuing to play that one game.
I think initially the fan base was frustrated on both sides, disappointed, certainly.
At the time, I understood why each school made its decision. As you look back on it now, though, the ironic thing is a lot of the teams in the North Central Conference in the old days, they're in D1 now. I mean, you got NDSU, you got UND, South Dakota State, University of South Dakota, Northern Colorado, Nebraska, Omaha, although they've dropped football since then. I realize it's hindsight, but you think back and wonder, why didn't these schools get together? You could still have the North Central Conference today.
The North Central Conference was now split, but what if they had stayed together?
The thing that made the rivalry truly intense and truly classic was the fact that both schools were in the same conference.
In my ideal, I would think, situation for the schools to be in the same league and drive up and down I-29 like the old days and have great rivalry games with everybody.
I think a lot of fans would like to see this if the schools could somehow get back in the same conference again. That would add more meaning to these games, fuel the rivalry even further, you know, add another chapter. But the way things are set up now, there's no chance really in the near future that the teams will change conferences.
So it helps to be in the same league, but I think when the Bison and Sioux get together, it doesn't make any difference what league they're in. It's all about who's going to win that game and have bragging rights.
Both teams have now moved up to Division I and have opportunities to meet in the regular season or playoffs. What was the next step?
It was just a joy to be a part of it. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking because you didn't want to lose, but it was fun to play it, and I just hope they get it started up again.
So I think we moved past whose fault was it, and now it's just a matter of, okay, when are we going to continue and start playing them again? And football right now is the biggest issue.
Eventually we'll get back there. It needs to, because the athletes and the coaches will love it. The fans will love it, but from an athletic competition standpoint for the players and the coaches, it's just a fun event to be a part of. it's great now that the Bison and the Sioux have gotten together in basketball and played the basketball game.
And the first few times we played them, it really wasn't like what it was in the past because there was not that history with particularly the athletes or in many cases the coaches as well.
Students and fans will grow into the rivalry, and many people think that the renewal is already heading in the right direction.
I think so. I think the fact that our presidents have a good relationship, I think it starts at the top down. So I think they've already established just a cooperative attitude and a respect for each other that will transpire throughout the growth of the competition between the two universities. You know, it's about student athletes and it's about their experiences and an opportunity to compete and really enjoy the competition. And
I hope from the fans' perspective it doesn't get to where it was. I hope it stays in a very respectful, healthy rivalry again as opposed to a negative. You know, that's one thing I appreciate is that it's right now the nastiness isn't there that it used to be, and to me that's a healthy rivalry as opposed to a heated rivalry.
UND and NDSU will figure something out as soon as they can to get that game because it'll benefit both schools.
With 21 national championships in Division II, these teams were always playing at the highest level. UND now has 7 Division I hockey championships, and NDSU won its first Division I football championship in 2012. The main thing this rivalry misses is the football competition. Hopefully this game can return sometime in the near future.
Well, I think it just would be a huge interest. I mean, the whole state gets in. You're either a Sioux or a Bison, you know, so the whole state gets involved in that particular game. And for that Saturday afternoon, everybody's focused on what's going to happen in that game. And it's just, like I said, it's exciting to be a part of it, exciting to play, it's exciting to be a fan, to go to the game.
People want to see these schools play each other in all sports. And there's an old showbiz saying, you got to give the people what they want. You know, football, it's got to happen. I mean, it's going to take some time, but I think it will happen. People will have waited for so long to see these teams play football. You won't have any trouble getting anyone excited about it. It'll be on television. They'll pack the place. No problem. Something, it would be like the old days in the fact that you'd have a game to mark on your calendar. You'd have a game to which you would look forward. You'd have a game. You'd try to get tickets as early as you could. The day they revive that football rivalry, I would like to be the ticket salesman.
One of the most rewarding things about being there for 18 years was being able to play that game.
Now, Jake, did filming this, increase your passion for the rivalry at all?
It did. It really made me crave something. Like, we have a rivalry now with SDSU, like we covered in the documentary, but it's nothing like what I saw that these people had. They had this passion, this fire, not necessarily a hatred, but they really just wanted to beat UND bad. And it's just something that I wish I had.
And Nate, what was your favorite part about this documentary then?
I think my favorite part was just discovering the stories told by so many of the people that we interviewed. They were all so passionate about, you know, the sport of what it used to be and even now, and just wanting the urge to get back there and see that passion again come out between the two schools. So.
Well, thank you guys. Next, we'll be sitting down with Aaron Berner and Matt Murtis.
With MapBus being the easiest, greenest, and most efficient way to get around North Dakota State University, there are tons of reasons to MapBus.
I'm at bus to get to class on time. I don't have to use my car, waste gas, or waste time finding a parking spot.
I'm at bus because their hybrid buses not only help our community and our state, but they're also helping our world.
I'm at bus not only to get around campus, but to get around the Fargo community. The 25 different routes get me anywhere I need to be.
There are many reasons to Matt Bus. Come find yours.
Join the herd. Be Matt Bus strong.
There's always something happening on the NDSU campus. Catch it all on SUTV News on Cable 1, Channel 14. Brought to you in part by Shields and Stop and Go.
Welcome back. Here with us now is Aaron Berner and Matt Murtis. They put together a documentary titled Stories from the Archives. Now, Matt, can you tell me, what is your film about?
Well, it's in the title, it's about the University Archives, which is a facility that is off campus that not a lot of people know about, and it holds a lot of artifacts and old documents such as pictures and championship rings and stuff like that, and really cool stuff that nobody really knows about. And we just wanted to really get some exposure for that facility and get people using it because they got some really cool stuff.
Okay. And Aaron, what gave you guys the idea to do the archives?
Well, it was really interesting. We got this as an assignment for this class, and at first we were really trying to figure out what we were going to do. Well, I had done the story and I had interviewed this guy, and I went to the archives, and there was some pretty incredible stuff there, so I just asked, and we ended up doing our documentary on the archives.
Well, why don't we see what you guys came up with?
This is North Dakota State University. It is a land-grant institution that is home to over 14,000 students. Established in 1890, the university has many different resources to offer, like the library, the Memorial Union, and the IAC. But there is at least one resource that many students don't seem to be aware of: the University Archives. What do you know about the University Archives?
Nothing. I didn't know NDSU had any.
No. I mean, I have no idea.
No.
Okay.
I honestly don't really know what's in there, so.
To find the archives, you need to travel 7 blocks north of campus to the NDSCS Skills and Technology Training Center. Go through the doors, down a few hallways, and on your right you will find a haven for NDSU history. Welcome to the Institute for Regional Studies Archives and the University Archives. The Institute was established in 1950, and the University Archives were created in 1971. This is Mike Robinson. He is the director of the archives. Two of the largest parts of his job are deciding what makes its way into the archives and making them more accessible and readily available to students.
I came here in August of '96 as the coordinator of the University Archives. It was a newly created position. I've thoroughly enjoyed it here. My wife and I have both been here for, obviously, going on 15 and a half years.
Being an archivist wasn't Mike's first career choice.
I was in career planning and placement for about 15 years, but I was getting unbelievably bored with doing resumes and cover letters and interviewing skills. Just so many ways you can do that stuff. And I'd always kept my undergraduate was in history, and I always was working on some project dealing with one of my other colleagues. And thankfully my wife said, after I said, I really would like to try something else, she said, fine, try it.
His role in the archives is more important than many people realize.
I mean, some people say archivists are curators. You're just a housekeeper. You keep, well, those historians who know archivists well enough know that archivists are a lot more than curators, because we determine what is processed and what you see and what you don't see.
And there is already a lot to see, with over 750,000 photographs, 5,500 non-circulating books, and about 3,000 artifacts. Most of these items are obtained through donations.
The collection she's working with is the St. Luke's School of Nursing photograph collection, recently donated to us, and she just did a high-resolution scan of this image. I guess we do this for several reasons. One reason why we do a high-resolution scan is that because these are such oversized images, what we're going to do is kind of a preservation thing. We're going to be putting it into these drawers, and we really don't want to have to pull them in and out a lot, because they're such large images, it can damage the images.
Through this scanning process, they both help the community and make money.
Just go right here. And Epson expression there. Yeah. These are just kept here, but we, someone wants to get a copy of it, we do sell them to people. If someone saw Grandma's picture here and they wanted a copy of that, we charge $15 a scan, and then if they're publishing it in a publication, then we also charge an additional fee. It helps us earn some money for expense. I mean, all the supplies are pretty expensive, and so it's kind of a little income for us.
There isn't much of a budget. I mean, we are salaried through the library, but through photo orders, for instance, the Kilbourne group I know in Fargo has ordered a number of photos that they want to put in buildings, whatever. So we generate revenue from our historical photos. Doing these little things, it adds up to about $10,000 a year. And every cent of that goes back into supplies.
A consequence of a small budget is a facility that is less than ideal.
Yeah, well, this isn't adequate. I mean, ideally, you want a sealed building where the environment is controlled internally, so with heating and humidity. For a mixed collection, such as what we have, we should be at about 68 degrees plus or minus 2, and about 45% humidity plus or minus 2. Temperature is not too bad in here, surprisingly. It's the humidity that will go from the 20s to the 70s, and it's not good on the materials.
A typical archival facility will have controlled humidity, temperature, and lighting.
You can see just from right here, this has been protected, this isn't. So the light, we have UV filters on the light, it has done that. So light is, obviously we need it to live, but it is phenomenally destructive. If you put a newspaper on your car dash, and the next, it browns. So that's, again, unfortunately, the nature of paper.
Even with a building that is a little small for its own good, the archives hold countless amazing stories.
This is interesting. Now the question to you, this is the minute book. And it says faculty record, North Dakota Agricultural College. As we turn it, we come to the meeting minutes of the first faculty here at North Dakota Agricultural College. So we have Stockbridge, Bolly, and Ladd, and they're making some decisions on what's going to happen for this university. Now, we became NDAC in March of 1890, so they were some of the early hires. Now, the question with this is this an artifact or is this a document?
Kind of has attributes of both.
Exactly, because what has happened is this has all been scanned and it's all been transcribed. So we're interested in the information, but there's something about touching it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the concept of touching the family Bible that went back 10 generations. It's, you know, you may have entered it all on Ancestry, but great-great-great-great-grandmother wrote it. It's kind of like, wow, this is kind of cool.
This is the one. Like, you can have the brief or the scans or whatever, but this is
Exactly.
So
Exactly. It's like the whole thing with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I mean, we could Google it and print out 1 million copies, but to go to the National Archives and actually see one, it's kind of like, wow. It's fun to just look. What we have down here are negatives. We have over 20,000 glass plate negatives. Now, give it a feel. Oh. Each box weighs 25 pounds. So, what these make for scanning, these are the clearest things in the world. These were all done by North Dakota Agricultural College, predominantly in the 1920s, and predominantly ag stuff. We do have some NDSU stuff, and I'll pick a box. I'm sure it'll be the wrong box, since I always pick one that doesn't. Okay, now these sleeves that they're in are wrong. So as you can see down there, the black boxes, they're being sleeved differently because it's gummy. But this was, when this was done, this is what you had available. And this is one of the problems we have with it. So I should be using gloves, which I am not. And we have bread. Oh well, not the neatest one, but we do have something. And these are about 90 years old. So, So these are how she kept her journals. And we're not doing anything with them, preserving them, although we do have them now. They have been transcribed. And so we'll probably be mounting these at some point in the near future. And one of the things she wrote was called A Discussion of the Male Species. All that is arrogant, selfish, and brutal signifies man. Grabbing, snatching, boasting, and kicking are his principal characteristics. Deceit and conceit also have their place in his makeup. Believe not what he says, for he has said the same to many others. Look at him through critical eyes, classify him in your minds, and deal with him accordingly. As escorts, playmates, and very distant friends should they be regarded, nothing else. Unfortunately, they are the stronger of the two sexes and therefore have acquired a more dominating personality. But fear not, this dominancy is found only in their physical status. Their mental, underlined, ability could be improved upon. Be courteous and exceedingly distant when in their presence, but when considering them at all, recall the above remarks and put them out of your mind. So this was written 90 years ago, and when we do this in front of classes, all the females, it's kind of like, yeah, nothing's not different. Some of the words maybe, but it's kind of like, yeah. So what makes this fun and interesting is that an 18-year-old is an 18-year-old, regardless if it was great-grandma or not. At one point, she was an 18-year-old, and she got ticked off, and there was very little difference that we think of how we've changed. You know, who likes to think of their grandmother as an 18-year-old? It's kind of creepy. These are also NDSU photos, too. So you're aware of the first chemistry building, aren't you?
which one?
The one that stood between Old Main and South Engineering?
Not aware of that.
Really? Oh, well, that's an interesting little story. That was our first real chemistry lab. I mean, we've used other buildings, and in fact, Old Main was used too as well for chemistry. But you can see that kind of looked like Ladd Hall, but it wasn't. So in fact, here's a better shot of it there. And the road that goes between, what was that, administration, between Old Main and South Engineering wasn't there, because the main entrance was in front of Old Main. This was built in 1905, and on December 24th, 1909, it blew up. So what they did was they were doing work in it, because it was during Christmas break, and it was very cold out, and fire started with the chemicals. They called the fire department. One of the hydrants was frozen shut, they couldn't do anything, and the chemicals literally exploded. It blew off the roof. It was lucky it was a north wind, because they had people on top of Putnam putting out the embers as it was hitting Putnam. So $85,000 loss. Again, this is a different type of, you could buy these in the bookstore.
Okay.
And North Dakota Agricultural College. And that is Helen Kern, who was his wife. They married. That is she and Claudia. So you can see he really wasn't that tall. There, the sweater.
So
that is the sweater I showed you guys.
Same sweater.
Same exact sweater. 4 stripes and the star above. So, man. What we have here are some good rings. Where we got them is Lynn Dorn, the women's athletic director. A few years ago, we were getting things from athletics, and these had never been picked up. So,
it's kind of like lost and found.
Well, kind of expensive lost and found. And what it says on it is obviously the year, that it is the championship. It gives the guy's name and his number, as well as the score of the championship game. Generally, these individuals, I researched them, they were here like for a semester or two, so they just didn't care. So, again, these are used more for display purposes than anything. This is a great ring. This is women's, and it wasn't picked up. This is women's basketball, and it was, I believe it was against Delta State, although don't quote me on that. But the year before, we had lost to them by 2 points in the championship. So this time when we played them, we beat them 95-63. And on the side, it's the word revenge. So, yeah, it really is. So these are really show and tell items. And the worth is just to anybody from NDSU. So I want to get people using this. It's very hard to justify one's existence when you have 4,000 collections and nobody's using it. We have hired now a public historian, which is the first time we've done that. We've been trying to do that since I've come here. And so Angela Smith, who is the professor of public history, she and I are starting to work together. So I think there's going to be more class utilization. 2 of the newer history professors, Tracy Barrett and David Silkenet, have been having their classes come up. And last semester, David's Civil War class went through the diaries. And I tell you, it's when a student has the option to do that and you're actually reading a guy's diary that was written in 1862, it becomes real, as opposed to a book where you're reading a recollection of it. And you're part of a tradition that may be 100 and some odd years old. So, and I realize some people say you don't need that. But I actually do think for a well-rounded student, it's important to touch on everything. It's kind of, if you don't know where you were, it's kind of difficult to know where you're going to go.
And Matt, can you tell me what was your favorite part about making the documentary?
I think my favorite part was also the hardest part, because we had so much footage of cool stuff that Mike showed us that it was hard deciding what we wanted to show people in the short amount of time frame we wanted to make this documentary, about 15 minutes. So it's kind of sifting through and revisiting all these things that we saw the first time. Like, God, that really was really cool. And it was difficult, but it was also really rewarding to come up because I think we're pretty happy with our final product. So.
And Aaron, what was the most interesting part of the documentary for you?
I'd say the most interesting part was, well, all the stories. I mean, we had so much content, and quite a bit of it we weren't able to include. Two that really come to mind are, one of them was a past president who did a really good job at NDSU, his name is spelled Worst, like W-O-R-S-T, but it's pronounced Verst. And another one, what would have been titled Slaughter Hall, but it goes by a different name now, so we aren't sending students to Slaughter Hall.
Yeah, I do remember when I was a freshman, they always joked about that. Well, this has been Working Title, a COMM 348 production. We would like to give special thanks to all who participated in the documentaries, as well as the NDSU Communication Department. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.